The mystery behind the Great Fire of London. Imagine a city burning, not just a house, but a whole city, for days and nights. This isn't a scary dream. It actually happened, wiping out ancient London in a fiery roar. What if this massive disaster, this Great Fire, wasn't just an accident? It was September 1666. London was a busy, crowded place, full of wooden houses packed close together like matches in a box. The streets were narrow, twisting paths. People lived their lives, thinking everything was normal, but a huge danger was lurking just around the corner, ready to explode. The fire started in a bakery on Pudding Lane, very early in the morning of Sunday, September 2nd. It was the king's baker, Thomas Fariner, who accidentally left his oven burning. A tiny spark, a little flame, was all it took. According to historical records from the Museum of London, the fire quickly spread from the baker's house to the nearby buildings, which were mostly made of wood and easy to burn. People tried to put it out, but it was too fast. The houses were so close, they practically touched. The fire jumped from one wooden roof to another. The wind, strong and gusty, acted like a giant fan, blowing the flames even wider and faster. It was like a monster waking up, roaring louder with every breath of wind. King Charles II was told about the fire. He was worried, but perhaps didn't fully grasp how truly terrible it would become. He told the Lord Mayor of London, Sir Thomas Bloodworth, to tear down houses in the path of the fire. This was a common way to stop fires back then. Create a big, empty space, a firebreak, so the flames couldn't jump across. But the Lord Mayor was slow. He worried about people's property. He said, "Pish. A woman might piss it out." This quote, often mentioned in historical accounts like those compiled by the National Archives, shows how little he understood the danger. His hesitation was a very costly mistake, making the fire much worse. The fire grew. It jumped the narrow streets, melting lead roofs and turning stone into powder. The air filled with thick, black smoke that blocked out the sun. Imagine looking up and seeing not blue sky, but a dark, terrifying cloud of smoke and embers raining down. The heat was so intense, people could feel it miles away. As the fire raged, fear turned into panic. People grabbed what they could and ran, trying to escape the fiery giant. They pushed carts full of their belongings, raced down the crowded streets, desperate to reach the safety of the open fields outside the city walls. Many fled to the River Thames, hoping to escape by boat. But the river itself became a chaotic scene. Boats were overloaded with people and their treasures. Some people even threw their valuables into the river, hoping to retrieve them later, only to find they were lost forever. The river shimmered with the reflection of the burning city, turning the water into a fiery orange mirror. The fire burned for 4 whole days and 4 nights. It ate through London's heart. St. Paul's Cathedral, a grand stone church, was supposed to be safe. Its thick stone walls seemed unbreakable, but the heat was so fierce that the lead roof melted, pouring down like liquid fire. The timbers inside caught fire, and the entire magnificent building crashed down in a terrible roar. Historians, referencing detailed descriptions in the diary of Samuel Pepys, often point to the fall of St. Paul's as a moment of profound despair for the city's inhabitants. When the smoke finally cleared, London was gone. 87 churches, including St. Paul's, and over 13,000 homes were destroyed. More than 100,000 people were left without a home. The city was a wasteland of ashes and twisted ruins. It was a picture of complete destruction, a scar on the land where a vibrant city once stood. Now, here's where the mystery truly begins. Was it just an accident? A baker's mistake? For many years, that was the simple answer. But some people at the time, and even today, thought something much darker was at play. They suspected a plot, a plan to burn London down. Right after the fire, people were looking for someone to blame. They were scared, angry, and needed an answer. Many people quickly turned their anger towards foreigners and Catholics. England at the time was largely Protestant, and there was a lot of distrust and fear of Catholics. This fear was often called popish plot, paranoia, a term well documented in academic papers from the Royal Historical Society. Amidst this chaos, A French watchmaker named Robert Hubert came forward. He was arrested because he said he had started the fire. He claimed he was a Catholic working for the Pope and had been sent to burn the city down. This confession sent shockwaves through the already terrified population. Hubert's story was strange and confusing. He kept changing his tale, telling different versions of how he started the fire. He said he used a fireball thrown through a window. He was a simple man, maybe not very smart, and some thought he was mentally unwell. According to a detailed examination of the legal proceedings of the time, as presented by the British Library, there were many doubts about his confession. Despite the shaky confession, Hubert was found guilty and hanged. People needed someone to pay for the terrible destruction, and he was the easiest target. His execution brought a false sense of closure to a city desperate for answers. But many, even then, wondered if justice had truly been served. What made people suspicious? The fire's speed and direction were unusual. It seemed to spread in several directions at once, not just from the bakery. Some eyewitness accounts, like those found in pamphlets published right after the event, described seeing people throwing fireballs into buildings. Were these just sparks, or was it something more? Also, the fire happened during a time of great tension. England was at war with the Netherlands and France. There were many plots and counterplots. People were very suspicious of foreigners. This atmosphere of fear and distrust made it easy to believe in a grand conspiracy. The historical context of the Anglo-Dutch Wars often comes up in studies by the University of Oxford on this period. But let's look at the facts again. London was a fire trap. Most houses were made of timber, covered in a sticky black substance called pitch that helped them burn even faster. The streets were narrow, and overhanging upper stories almost touched, creating a tunnel effect for the flames. Water pumps were few and far between, and firefighters used leather buckets, which were not effective against such a huge blaze. A drought before the fire made everything extremely dry. The strong east wind on that fateful Sunday was also a major factor. These natural conditions alone were a perfect recipe for disaster. A report by the London Fire Brigade Museum highlights that the city's building methods and lack of proper firefighting infrastructure made it incredibly vulnerable. So, could Robert Hubert have actually started it? Modern historians mostly agree that he didn't. He was a small, weak man, and it's highly unlikely he could have started such a massive fire alone. Plus, he wasn't even in London when the fire began, a fact confirmed by later investigations. He probably confessed because he was confused, or maybe even forced, under the immense pressure of the situation. The blame for the Great Fire of London, then, usually comes back to Thomas Farriner's bakery. The most accepted theory is that the accidental spark, combined with the incredibly dangerous city design and strong winds, caused the disaster. There was no grand plot, no shadowy figures throwing fireballs from the dark. It was a tragic accident magnified by the conditions of the time. However, the idea of a conspiracy lingered for centuries. It captured people's imaginations. It was easier to believe in a villain, a deliberate act, than to accept the terrifying randomness of fate and the failings of urban planning. Even today, the phrase "popish plot" is synonymous with unfounded accusations and widespread fear. The Great Fire of London was not just a destructive event, it was also a turning point. After the fire, London was rebuilt, but this time with better planning. Streets were made wider, and houses were built with more brick and stone, instead of just wood. This lesson, learned through immense suffering, changed how cities were built forever. Sir Christopher Wren, a famous architect, designed many of the new buildings, including the magnificent new St. Paul's Cathedral. His plans, still studied at institutions like the Royal Institute of British Architects, show a visionary approach to urban renewal. The fire also led to the creation of the first real fire insurance companies. Before, if your house burned down, you lost everything. But after the fire, people realized they needed protection. This idea, born from destruction, changed how people protected their homes and belongings. This innovation is detailed in economic histories of the period, such as those found in journals like Economic History Review. So, while the mystery of a deliberate act may be largely debunked by historical evidence and modern understanding, the human desire for a clear explanation, a tangible culprit, remains. Robert Hubert was a tragic scapegoat, a victim of fear and prejudice. The true culprits were the crowded, wooden city, the lack of proper fire safety, and the powerful forces of nature. The Great Fire of London reminds us how fragile our world can be, how quickly things can change, and how important it is to learn from our mistakes. It's a story of destruction, yes, but also of resilience, rebirth, and the slow, hard work of building a better, safer future. It shows us that sometimes the scariest events are not caused by evil plots, but by simple accidents in a world not yet ready for them.